I grew up on a farm on Noongar Yuid country. It was a wheat and sheep farm and then later became a fish farm. So my grandparents are white. The little town we grew up in is mostly white people. Yeah, it really had an impact as someone who was obviously Indigenous, just growing up and being curious and trying to make sense of the world and where I fit in it. I think I spent a lot of years really trying to assert myself as an Indigenous person. Like, it took me a long time to even identify as Yindjibarndi. So I've done all that. I feel solid in who I am. But this work is really thinking about the situation I actually grew up in and kind of the tensions and contradictions within it. The star picket's an object I'm very, very familiar with. As someone who's grown up on a farm, I started to think about how that form is very, very similar to a wanna or digging stick. Star pickets and wanna are both about kind of sustenance, growing food, collecting food, and I find it kind of interesting these two forms that are quite similar have very different relationships to country going on. A wanna is designed to carry with you and moves with you, whereas the star pickets are marking ownership and disrupting a lot of movement as well, movement of people and movement of animals. So I kind of wanted to create that association. I feel like there's a lot of potential for conversation from that. As a kid, one of the big things was not being able to really visualise Aboriginal people doing whatever, just everyday life sort of things in that landscape. I have memories of being in like the back paddock of our farm by myself and looking out across the paddocks and into the bush that was still there and trying to imagine people doing anything. And I found it really, really hard. I think it had a lot to do with the kind of history that comes through in primary school and also any kind of curiosity around what Aboriginal people might be doing, met with, oh, probably not much, or kind of dismissed. The message that I did get growing up was that Aboriginal people don't have that culture anymore, which, is far, far, far from the truth. The other part to this bigger picture is that my mum was part of the stolen generations and she was adopted and brought up on this same farm. I think for stolen generations descendants, I am speaking for myself, but I wonder about others too. Finding the things that really belong to you and you can feel solid in, it takes work. So this work is kind of being in that space and confronting it a bit. The radio was always on as my granddad was working. It was just this constant background noise. There's a real nostalgia to them for me. With my installation work, I think it's really important to have sound, just so there's multiple ways into the work. It's general field recordings, the sound of birds and cars driving past the farm in the distance. There's also scraping or digging sounds to connect to how a wanna is used to dig up soil. Thinking about radios, there's sort of these ideas of broadcasting over a large distance, thinking about stories that have power and sometimes the signal isn't great, so you think about distortion and maybe not getting all the information you need as well. So there's a few different ideas that come in the mix. I like using everyday objects because there's going to be something familiar about them that people can connect with. I'm interested to hear those stories that come through, finding that kind of connection to place can happen in everyone's unique way. I really, really enjoy that.